We're living in a time where as much as we enjoy polished AAA games that we treat as high quality comfort food, what we want to see more of are confident, well-crafted games that are full of passion and love. In 2012, Arkane Studio released Dishonored, a terrific first-person action stealth hybrid game that takes place in Dunwall, one of the most immersive, well-crafted worlds ever seen in a relatively linear game. In both gameplay and especially in its presentation, Dishonored was a breath of fresh air. 4 years later, we finally received the long-awaited Dishonored 2. And although it is basically a straightforward, similar plain and looking sequel, it is incredible in every way. Dishonored 2 is a well thought out adventure full of love, care, and absolute precision in its execution, providing a terrific gameplay experience in a beautiful world. Here's why Dishonored 2 is one of the best games of 2016. And as a quick disclaimer, I've beaten this game once as Corvo and I'm halfway through my playthrough of Emily. However, I don't have any gameplay footage of myself playing as Emily, so I do apologize. Taking place 15 years after the events of the first game, Dishonored 2 starts off with Corvo and his now confirmed daughter Emily running a ceremony in remembrance of the assassination of Jessamine Caldwin, the late Empress, who was Emily's mom and Corvo's love interest. While Emily's on the throne, Delilah, the antagonist of the original game's DLC, barges in and claims to be the half-sister of Jessamine, which means the throne should rightfully be hers. And yes, she's lying, and yes, she is a bitch. So Delilah and her posse start to kill everyone, and that is when you get to have the pleasure in choosing whether you should play the entire game as Corvo or new playable character Emily. Regardless of who you choose, you end up fleeing Dunwall and have to vacate to Karnaca, otherwise known as the Jewel of the South. From then on out, it's up to you to figure out everything that's going on so you can take back your throne. The original Dishonored set up its revenge plot extremely well, and I'm pleased that this game's revenge story is also excellent, as I was immediately invested in what was going on and couldn't wait to get my hands on that bitch Delilah, and believe me, you're gonna think the same. The narrative is told very well through both the cutscenes and the voice acting. However, I do believe that there were many moments in which the game goes out of its way to re-explain things you've just learned. The voice acting in this game is well done, and the addition of your character having a voice made their skim-deep motivations feel fleshed out and powerful. While the game does have a great narrative that can be emotionally investing, especially if you played the first game, I'm still bothered by how the game rewards you with a good or bad ending, depending on how many people you've killed. But besides what I think of how you earn the endings, I very much enjoyed Dishonored 2's simple story. My favorite thing about the original Dishonored, as well as its sequel, is the immersion. Dishonored 2's art style, world building, and environmental storytelling are some of the best I've experienced in video games. Karnaca is a beautiful world dripping with personality, character, and dread. Whether I was walking through the sunny Karnaca streets, sneaking in homes that are either being lived in or abandoned, hopping across flat rooftops, or entering large areas fit for royalty, simply existing in Dishonored 2's world made me feel as if I was exploring a land full of history and conflict, thriving on the citizens that live there and the politics that influence people's attitudes and habits. This exemplary world building exists thanks to the game's impressive level design, well thought out environmental storytelling, and amazing art style. Dishonored 2's art style looks like it was more inspired by paintings than any other forms of art and entertainment. The distinct faces, character models, paintbrush landscapes, and artistic color palette makes Dishonored's world its own. The game excels at making me feel different moods during specific moments. Because of wonderful indirect methods of storytelling, I always had a sense as to what was going on in certain parts of Karnaca. Each level had its own feel, theme, and mood, and I was able to get a good sense of any situation, character, and environment throughout the entire game. The soundtrack also stands out with its ambient, violin-heavy score that represents the eclectic time period. Dishonored 2's presentation is a wonderful accomplishment in a world full of mostly safe AAA video games, as it's one of the most immersive fictional places I've visited since last year's The Witcher 3. My only problems with the game's presentation are with its performance. While the game is graphically stunning, there were a few frame rate drops during specific moments, weird physics, and pop-ins. And this may just be a me thing, but that prompt at the bottom left of every cutscene that tells you can hold square to skip it, as well as the message that pops up in the middle of the screen during gameplay that recommends I equip the heart, were insanely annoying. And the load times were incredibly long as well. Even with these little nitpicks, I consider Dishonored 2 to be an artistic masterpiece in the world of video games. Dishonored 2's gameplay is largely the same compared to the first game. I revisited the first game for a little bit shortly before the game's release, and besides a few new moves, Dishonored 2 literally feels like a smoother version of the first game. As negative as this may sound, this is a very good thing. I love the gameplay of the original Dishonored, so providing more of the same was exactly what I wanted. One of the wonderful things about Dishonored is that it gives you the freedom and tools to play the game exactly the way you want. You could either have a high chaos playthrough where you basically like to kill everything and attack them head on, or a low chaos playthrough where you sneak around and kill as few people as possible, which is what I've done. Both Emily and Corvo have a sword/knife thing for the right hand and can switch their left-handed weapon on the fly, from a short-range pistol to a crossbow with lethal and non-lethal ammunition. In this regard, both characters play relatively the same. It's when you consider their powers that things start to get interesting. Corvo's powers are largely unchanged from the first game. You have Blink, which lets you teleport anywhere close by, Possession, so you can take control of animals and eventually humans, and you can slow down time and create some very interesting scenarios and gameplay strategies. On the other hand, Emily's abilities seem to cater more to players who like to experiment with their lethal or non-lethal playstyles. Her version of Blink is Far Reach, which works like a grappling hook. She has Mesmerize, which puts enemies in a state of sedation, Shadow Walk, which turns her into this shadowy creature that can just rip apart enemies, Domino, which is probably one of my favorites, in which you can link up a group of enemies, and whatever happens to one of them, happens to all of them. Those are just a few of the abilities both characters have, but regardless as to which player you choose, both Emily and Corvo tailored to both lethal and non-lethal playstyles, which is very impressive. I very much enjoyed playing through this game quietly. However, during the moments when all hell broke loose and I had to fight and kill my way through, I was shown that a violent, chaotic playthrough was just as fun and rewarding as a non-violent one. Compared to any other game out there, Dishonored 2 is a fantastic game where you can literally play however you want. Do you like running around murdering everyone and causing chaos? You'll love Dishonored 2. Do you enjoy sneaking around and being smart and silent? You'll love Dishonored 2. Are you a creative mastermind that loves to manipulate people and toy around with the game's mechanics and powers? You will absolutely love Dishonored 2. The levels in Dishonored 2 are pretty much close to perfect. There are 9 missions that have you tasked with taking out a specific target, either by killing them or dispatching them non-lethally in incredibly creative ways. Each mission has a small, yet varied array of side missions and secret collectibles to go through, and most of these missions have a terrific theme or gimmick that make Dishonored 2 a consistently fresh, enjoyable experience. One level has you in between an armed conflict between different factions in the middle of a sandstorm. One has you sneaking into a conservatory full of witches that fight completely differently than any other enemy. But the levels in which you navigate a mansion that changes and switches like a physical puzzle, as well as one where you navigate through different time periods, are not only some of the best levels of the game, but are also some of the most memorable moments I've had in a video game in a long time. The level design throughout the entire game is also consistently fantastic, as there are many different ways to tackle your mission with interactable objects, secret entrances and exits, and complete separate areas that you won't see until future playthroughs. Dishonored 2 is a masterclass in level design in both its creativity and thoughtful layout. The game will take you between 12 to 15 hours on your first playthrough depending on your playstyle. Replay value consists of playing as the other character, which makes it feel like a different version of the same story, finding all the collectibles, switching playstyles, and experimenting with the game's unique gameplay mechanics. Dishonored 2 is one of the only games where I want to play this game multiple times in completely different ways. There are many games, especially RPGs, where I would play them multiple times so I can make different narrative choices, but still use the same playstyle. Dishonored 2 is one of the only games where I am excited to play the game in a completely different way. Dishonored 2 is a well-thought-out adventure where I spent every single second of my time with it loving the game for different reasons. Whether I'm sneaking around a highly patrolled area in the midst of intense combat, admiring the game's stunning beauty, stumbling upon useful collectibles, or being mesmerized by the environmental storytelling, there was never a dull moment, as every single encounter was just as memorable as the last. The game lets you play the way you want with no limitations, but provided you with a fantastic combat and stealth system. The story is simple and enjoyable. I care for the characters, its art style is absolutely unique and gorgeous, and Karnaca is one of the most immersive places I've been to in a long time. The problems I have in both the gameplay and its presentation are minor when compared to the rest of the experience because it's that good. If you pick up Dishonored 2 as soon as possible, you'll actually get the first game remastered for PS4 Xbox One with all of its DLC, so not playing the first game isn't an excuse anymore. You have to play this game. Dishonored 2 is now the prime example of a game that lets you interact and explore its immersive, well-thought-out world the way you want to. Dishonored 2 receives a 9.5 out of 10. So that was what I think of Dishonored 2, but if there are any questions you want me to answer about this game, let me know in the comments below. Also, if you've played Dishonored 2, you should let me know what you think of the game so we can agree and disagree and argue about it in the comments below. For more video game reviews, top 10s, or fun stuff about my life as well as fun stuff about bathrooms, then subscribe to BathroomGamers. Thank you for watching, and stay fresh.